Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. Now, speaking of the news cycle, J.J. Abrams better feed it a concrete Star Wars update soon, as rumors continue to swirl and potentially stick with audiences, at least in their mind. Now, of course, no one's ever going to get tired of Star Wars. So, I think to some degree J.J. Abrams feels he has all the time in the world. But at the same time, if you let the audience get their heart set on certain casting decisions that are rumored right now, and then you don't deliver those decisions, or you deliver someone who isn't as good, it could just get the franchise, the new trilogy, off to a bad start. But today there's a quasi-concrete update that's been floating around, and that's that Chiwetel Ejiofor, the star of 12 Years a Slave, was spotted sitting in J.J. Abrams' waiting room. Yes, that's pretty concrete considering what else we have. And so the journalist who spotted him, I believe it was a UK journalist, this news story comes from Bleeding Cool, went in to talk to J.J. Abrams and was like, why is Chiwetel Ejiofor sitting out there? I guess he probably went in after Chiwetel Ejiofor. I'd be surprised if Chiwetel Ejiofor had to wait. But maybe, who knows. But J.J. Abrams said, I can't talk casting, but Chiwetel Ejiofor is a very talented gentleman, a very nice man. So, again, more stalling from J.J. Abrams' part. Now, I understand that he has to stall to some degree because the script has been delayed. That has been a concrete update, that Michael Arndt is out and that J.J. Abrams is going to take on scripting duties himself with Lawrence Kasdan from the original trilogy. And that was a great update. That was exciting, even if, it did also mean a delay in, potentially this casting news. But I imagine Chiwetel Ejiofor is taking a lot of meetings. The guy is the star of 12 Years a Slave, the hottest Oscar awards contender out there right now. So everybody's going to want a piece of him. And also, I would imagine everybody's wanting to sign him before he gets a nomination, a major nomination for a Golden Globe or an Oscar, because his price will go up. And then if he wins, his price will really go up. So I think everybody would love to land him now, and then when he does get nominated or win, their movie can kind of ride the coattails of that, as every article will say, for sure, if it was Star Wars, Chiwetel Ejiofor, upcoming star of J.J. Abrams' new Star Wars trilogy. I think that Chiwetel Ejiofor would be an interesting choice. I think he's a very good actor. I saw 12 Years a Slave. I thought he was very good in it. I don't know how exciting he is. I think that you need your Alec Guinness for sure. That's why I was excited to hear that maybe Daniel Day-Lewis was in the mix. Benedict Cumberbatch kind of falls into that territory. Saoirse Ronan is a very serious actress, which is great. But I'm not seeing a Harrison Ford choice here yet. You need that energy. And that's a mistake, I feel, that Lucas made with the prequels, that there wasn't that kind of character who could ramp up the energy and elevate the entire trilogy and make it fun. Mythology is very important, but so is the fun aspect, which I think Peter Jackson, for instance, is very good at adding some fun to that as well. Later today, I'm going to be reviewing that 3-minute sneak preview that came out yesterday. But anyway, Chiwetel Ejiofor, awesome actor, very talented guy. I'm sure he could really pull off some great dramatic scenes, but I'm sorry to say, not particularly fun. So that's the first story of the day. Chiwetel Ejiofor also in the mix for Star Wars. Who knows when we'll start getting some news. I do wonder, though, how long do you think you can wait before it'll leave a bad taste in your mouth? We'll all come back, but we might come back with a chip on our shoulders, right? All right, so the second story of the day is that, another comic book movie has been approved, or in the comic book vein, and it's called, American Ultra. Not to be refused with the Ultra comic book that came out about female superheroes. This is an idea from Max Landis, who came up with Chronicle. Great pedigree right off the bat. Loved Chronicle. Really loved Chronicle a lot, actually, and was sad to hear that they will not be making a sequel because the studio didn't want to continue the mythology, but just kind of wanted to repeat the first film. And so Josh Trank was like, I'd rather make Fantastic Four. And they were like, we'd rather you make Fantastic Four, too. We're much more interested in that and keeping our rights to it. So anyway, Chronicle pretty much dead for now. So Max Landis is doing this American Ultra story. And the reason it's gotten some headlines is because Jessie Eisenberg and Kristen Stewart have both signed on to potentially play the leads. I say potentially because the thing isn't 100% greenlit yet. They're just packaging it. So they've signed on to reteam after Adventureland, and the setup is that it's about a stoner and his girlfriend who have to escape shadowy government assassins because the stoner has this secretive past. And it's going to be directed by the guy behind Project X. I have to look up his name, Nima Nourzadeh, and I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it, but it's interesting. He's of Iranian descent. I believe he's a radio host, and his Project X is his one and only film, which I heard, I remember covering it, and people thought that it was a fun party. It wasn't a huge box office hit. I don't think it really even made much of a cultural impact, but it was competently directed. This seems a little bit close to 30 minutes or less, which didn't do great. I think stoner humor can be very tricky. It's not particularly mainstream. And Jesse Eisenberg is really on a roll right now. Now You See Me was a huge surprise hit of the summer. They're making a sequel. He has that and The Social Network now to his name. And so I think if he really plays his cards right, he's booked a gig on Modern Family, a guest spot. I think if he plays his cards right, he could really up his movie star profile and become more of a player in the mainstream. And I know some of you feel that's not important, but it's always important to become as big a star as you can so that you're freer to make some of the more creative choices you want to, because your name carries some weight on a film. All right, so I have mixed feelings about that. I'd really have to learn more about it and see a trailer. And also, I don't know if Jesse Eisenberg and Kristen Stewart, I don't know if the comedy would make fun of both how nervous they both are. Kristen Stewart, Jesse Eisenberg, I really like. Kristen Stewart, I kind of would like to like Kristen Stewart, but after seeing her in Snow White and the Huntsman, where she had to give that speech, that rousing speech to the troops, and it was just so wooden and horrible, wooden, leaden, every bad acting adjective you can think of, you could use to describe that scene. And I just don't think she's a good actress, I'm afraid. But she has her fan base. We'll see how long that lasts post-Twilight. All right, so that's the second story of the day. The third story is that I don't know if anybody else here watches Big Bang Theory. I'm sure some of you must. It's a huge hit. But I love that show. I think it's a fantastic show. And of course, Jim Parsons gets most of the attention for it. He wins all the Emmys. He plays Sheldon Cooper. However, Simon Helberg, who plays Howard, is also, I think, very talented. If you might have seen the episode a week or so ago where he sang a song to his wife Bernadette, he did a wonderful job doing that. He also does great impressions on the show, great comedic timing, really gifted guy. And he's going to direct a movie. He wrote it, he's co-directing it with an actress that he knows, and he's going to star in it. Now, they just got the international rights sold, and it's not even particularly sold to a distributor. I believe it's sold to an agency that will itself then try and sell the rights. So it's like more of a middleman. But the ball is rolling. And the movie is called We'll Never Have Paris. And Simon Helberg has said that he wanted to make a movie, he and his directing partner, about the complete and utter destruction of a relationship. And the basic setup is that he plays a Howard type kind of guy who is at his office and is about to propose to his girlfriend at home when his coworker, Maggie Grace, from Taken, proposes to him and says, "Oh, I love you so much," and it kind of throws his relationship out of whack, and his girlfriend runs up, his ex-girlfriend now, played by Melanie Linsky, who you might recall, I think is most known for playing Charlie Sheen's crazy neighbor on 2.5 Men. She runs off to Paris, and then he decides to go after her and tries to fix their relationship, and I guess they can't because it says we'll never have Paris. It's an interesting idea. I'm glad that he's expanding his horizons creatively and taking charge of his own career. I feel it's very important for actors to do. I don't think anybody will see this in theaters. I think that him being the lead from television and Melanie Linsky having such a strong television background kind of torpedoes it. It might be able to do well on demand, but I feel like if he wanted to move into features as an actor, I think he would have been better off getting a supporting role. For instance, Tobey Maguire is a great example of that. Now, Tobey Maguire obviously didn't really start on television, but he was really smart and he played a ton of supporting roles, and therefore he never was responsible for a film failing at the box office, but he could benefit from when one succeeded. And so he really didn't have any strikes against him, which is why he landed ultimately the Spider-Man franchise. And so that was a very clever kind of passive-aggressive way to build a career. And I think that for television, that's a good way to jump in, not in the lead because, you're a television star, but in smaller roles. But maybe by making this movie, then he can start doing that. He seems like a smart guy. I'm sure there's a method to his madness. Who knows? Maybe he just wanted to direct a movie. But I'm glad it looks like he's getting to at least do that. All right, so those are the 3 stories of the day. Now we're going to jump back to 12 Years a Slave because we have a question from Maria Vosa. You might recall that's Asa from the wish list episode about Batman Superman 2015. And she says, I don't really understand this limited release strategy. over several weeks for a movie like 12 Years a Slave. You know, it opens in just a few theaters and slowly expands. It says, isn't there a risk that it'll be perceived as narrow by general audiences with this strategy and lose its buzz in the media? When will they go wide? For which movies is this a winning strategy, and how do the studios decide? Great question, especially because we're coming up on award season, and this is a very popular tactic. All right, so this is how this happens. Now, a studio will decide to release a movie in limited release if they feel it's questionable as to whether or not it will have mainstream appeal. 12 Years a Slave doesn't have a big star in it. It's a slavery film. You know, it's not a flashy one like Django Unchained. There's already been several films this year, like The Butler and Fruitvale Station, which are kind of in the same category. So there's some concern that if it was to open wide, it would fail. The name of the game here is headlines, especially for these smaller films, because they need the box office headlines not only to entice other people to buy tickets, but to make sure that the film doesn't have any black eyes with the industry, because they want it to go, when it goes into voting for the awards, they want to make sure people have a positive view of the film. Not, oh, that was a great film that was really received at festivals but rejected by audiences. So a film will open in a limited release because it's less of a gamble financially, and so that's one half of it, and also because they're afraid that if it were to open wide, they would have a bad headline. It would be like 12 Years a Slave doesn't make any money, all right, or rejected by audiences, as I just said. All right, so let's do both. It's a dual track kind of thing. So on the one hand, there's it's cheaper to release it in limited release. This is kind of allowing supply and demand to decide how wide the release should get. If a movie has a very good, strong per theater average, and then when you slowly increase the number of theaters it's playing in, such as they're doing with 12 Years a Slave, and the box office numbers increase, they go up, just like with 12 Years a Slave, that tells the distributor, Fox Searchlight, there's an interest in this movie, there's a lot of demand, so they can increase the supply. At the point when the per theater average starts to become average and not particularly exceptional, maybe about in the $3,000 range, then they know that they've kind of hit the top of the market. That's as wide as the movie should go. There's no further interest in seeing it. So that's when a studio will decide to stop. So that's the supply and demand aspect of these limited releases. They let the market decide how wide it should go. Now, in terms of the awards headlines side of it, they want the headlines. So, of course, when 12 Years a Slave came out in very few theaters, they were able to boast this huge 50,000 per screen average. So that's kind of creating almost like a Pied Piper effect. Those headlines not only get the industry more excited about a movie, but audiences. Someone who maybe wasn't thinking of seeing 12 Years a Slave will go, wow, that's an impressive per screen average. Maybe I should go and check it out. So they go and they keep seeing it, and then that feeds it. And so as they expand it, they keep having these headlines. 12 Years a Slave continues to bring in people, continues to grow. Just this week, as I played the game, I said, hey, 12 Years a Slave expanded its theater count and rose by over 100% at the box office. So some of you who might not have seen the film go, maybe this is the tipping point for me to buy a ticket. Now, furthermore, by doing a limited release strategy so early, they're able to slowly roll it out and benefit from awards, nominations, and wins, as I also pointed out the first weekend it was released. So 12 Years a Slave won't peak too early. So let's say around the time that all the best pictures of the year from the Critics Association start coming out. That'll happen first. 12 Years a Slave will still be going strong. It won't have peaked yet, and that can feed into audience interest and help it further expand. It's like slowly building instead of just like, bam, a house. You know, it's like playing Jenga. They're very carefully trying to, well, not Jenga because you're trying to pull it down, but I guess very piece by piece building a structure and a balancing act of getting the right headlines, getting the right nominations, and audience interest, all of this stuff, and the right per theater average, all of this stuff playing off of each other. And so that's kind of the name of the game with these limited release and awards films. This very rarely happens, this strategy, obviously, for blockbuster films because they're made to appeal to, they're made to get their money, get in, and get out. Now, of course, it would be wonderful if they had legs like Gravity, but that's the important thing. Now, it really sucks for people who aren't in major movie markets, which are New York and LA primarily. And it's an unfortunate side effect of the way the business works because most industry voters and press are in New York and LA, and that's why those cities get the most attention. So, that's the other thing. These movies aren't so much created just for audience pleasure. So audiences aren't the most important thing when it comes to the studio's release strategy. It's getting the headlines and impressing the media and Academy voters when that's where they are. So that's I hope that it's a complicated situation. I hope that answer clears it up a little bit. Thank you for asking, Asa. Maria Vosa's real name is Asa. So they also, by the way, Wishlist just taped another episode yesterday. It will go up by the end of the week. All right, so thank you everybody for tuning in. That's today's morning movie news. Write down below what you think of today's stories and today's question and anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, as well as any other questions you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.